is the really powerful thing about LandGate is we have an enormous amount of data that we have put into one application. And what you can see as you zoom in on this map, you're going to see an enormous amount of data start to populate onto the map, and we will append all of that data and all of that information down to specific parcels where once you have access to the application, you can see who the owners are, you can see property lines, all of those things. And let me jump back in here, turn my listings off. And I am going to be able to go through a bunch of different energy types. So I can click on solar energy, and this isn't just around energy. This really revolves around any type of due diligence that you would want to conduct for real estate investments, things like that. So I can go through and I can look at solar energy, wind energy, EV charging, land information. So as we look at this map, you're going to see some data populate here. You're starting to see tree outlines of where you have tree cover, some additional information of these red outlines. What that's showing you, and that you get this across the United States, it's showing you where you have high topography or high slopes of your property, where you have dwellings, flood zones, waterways, and you can pan around and start looking at all of this information. You can see where you have pipelines, transmission lines, flood zones, all of this information you can see there. But that is, we're going to show you what this does when you actually click on a parcel, because what makes this different from a lot of other folks is that these aren't just layers on a map, GIS layers. These are all tied in specifically to your parcel. So we're going to go through quickly just some of the data that you have an opportunity to view. There's some of the solar data as far as buildable acreage goes. Here is, if you click on the infrastructure, you're going to see transmission lines. These are these big highways for electrons that carry power from power plants down to our homes. You can see the substation. You'll be able to see solar farms. This is important as well for a lot of the investors or a lot of property owners on the call. You're going to get access to not only the outlines of the solar farms that are existing on the ground and producing today, but you're also going to get access to planned solar farms as well. So you can see here, there's this yellow solar panel there. If you drive by this property, you likely have no idea that there's going to be a future solar farm there. So this is, again, a due diligence tool that provides a lot of information to you that you're likely not going to have access to until you start doing some really technical due diligence yourself, knowing where to find the information, actually what to look for in the first place. But I can go through all of that information. I'm going to show you some, for the commercial folks on the call, I'll show you what we do with the rooftop solar information there. But I'm just going to go through some of these different sources here. If I click on the land portion itself, this is a really cool layer that a lot of folks like to look at. It shows you what the land is actually being used for, or the property is actually being used for. So we will break this down, and when we click on this individual property, it's going to tell us how many individual acres of each land use type you have for the property. The topography one is good for a lot of folks that are using this for recreational purposes or farming purpose, agriculture purposes. Shows you topography where you have high slopes and your contour lines. The tree layer, also interesting. That's going to be rolled into some of the carbon credit calculations that we do. Here's your soil information. Shows you good and bad soils relative to agriculture production. Carbon credits, you have your oil and gas layers. This one's interesting because a lot of the oil and gas infrastructure, especially, I come from a background, a very heavy background of energy. The majority of folks don't understand what's going on beneath their feet. That goes whether you own the property or you lease the property, looking at purchasing the property. All of this information that you're seeing here, the green active wells, the pipelines, all of those different things, that's happening underneath our feet. Most people don't have access to that data and that information. So all of that is provided there. This mineral tab is interesting. This is going to show you mining locations classified proprietarily by LandGate across the United States. And then also kind of an interesting layer here where it'll show you the actual bedrock of properties. This is interesting for a lot of property developers, housing developers, things like that out there. What is actually below that soil, right? We could take a look at the soil, can take a look at the soils there, but what lies actually below that soil as well. So then we have water data. You click on the water data, get access to water wells, aquifers, dam places where there's been diversions or dams. And then another really interesting one, and this is probably one of the most used data sets for the residential folks on the call, is this contamination layer, where we're going to pull in all the Superfund sites, again, classified proprietarily by LandGate, contamination sites, and then abandoned oil and gas wells. So as you can see, a lot of this information directly impacts enormous amounts of properties across the United States. What LandGate has done is brought that information to the forefront of initial property due diligence. Most of this information is probably never disclosed or never found out when people are buying and selling properties in the first place. What this does is bring all of this information right to the forefront as I'm screening deals, whether I'm buying them, holding them as an asset. I know there's several folks on the call that hold very significant assets across the United States, multiple real estate assets across multiple states in the US. This is a really good way to understand what do you actually have.